Hello friends, welcome back to EduTap Himachal Pradesh Administrative Services channel. In this session, we are going to continue with the previous year questions discussion, but the topic that we are going to discuss is economy. So and the questions that we are going to cover in this particular session is the questions from 2016 and 2017. So now let's proceed ahead. So as you have already solved the quiz in the morning, this question was not part of that quiz because this question was wrongly put in the year 2016 and there is no answer for this question because the answer doesn't match with any of the option. Let us now read with the question. Before proceeding ahead with the question, let us look at the important topic, that is the topic from which the question has come. The topic is human development, and if you look at the growth of an economy, the growth versus development. This is a very important topic from the examination point of view because this is a topic where examiner would like to test an understanding of the candidates, and this topic is important from both the prelims perspective and as well as the mains perspective. In prelims, the questions would be asked from the important reports such as Human Development Index, Gender Development Index, Gender Inequality Index. There are various reports. And this particular question, the idea behind discussing this particular question is, if we go through this question, we'll get an idea about how to prepare for the upcoming examination and what type of or what sort of questions would be asked. Just look at this question. HDI is measured with reference to infant mortality, real GDP per capita is one of the options, and apart from that, life expectancy at birth and morbidity. So these are the four indicators that are mentioned in this particular question, and we have to select the answer. If we look at this answer, the answer did not match with any of the options described given above, hence the question was scrapped. Now let us look at the HDI in particular. The Human Development Index was first developed in the year 1990 by Mehboob ul Haq. He is a Pakistani economist, Mehboob ul Haq, along with Amartya Sen. The team worked under the leadership of the Mehboob ul Haq, who is a Pakistani economist. He worked along with United Nations. So the report is released since 1990 annually. The reason why this report had come in the first place was growth was a very crude indicator. That is, the growth of a country was measured in terms of GDP, which doesn't give a complete or just a complete picture of the economy because the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. In order to get a holistic understanding of the economy, we needed a better indicator to measure the growth of a country. And the human development is a perfect description or perfect counter to the growth GDP factor. Hence, this was developed in the year 1990, and since then, every year the report is released by the United Nations Development Program along with OPHI. So these two organizations release the Human Development Index annually, and in that index, there are roughly around 189 or 190 countries which will vary. Out of those many countries, it will rank particular countries. So such as what is the ranking of India in the year 2021, in the 2020, because 2021 report is not yet released. So what are the important indicators? What are the important indicators of the human development? First and the foremost indicator, see, just think in terms of the development of an individual. First of all, one needs to be healthy. That is why they have taken health as a very important criteria. If one is healthy, only then he can go out and learn or contribute in the economy. Apart from that health, the education of an individual will develop one's personality. So the human development will take into consideration health, education, and the standard of living. Which is given over here. And if we are measuring at the country level, the health criteria which is measured in particular is life expectancy at birth. So what exactly is the life expectancy at birth? India's life expectancy at birth has improved to 69 years, which was around roughly 50 in the year 1990. It has improved by leaps and bounds. And so that is the health parameter. And within education, we have expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. And within the standard of living, we have the GNI per capita. be mindful of the factor GNI, gross national income. They are not taking into consideration GDP. So these are the three indicators, and the answers to this particular question should be life expectancy at birth plus education and plus GNI. GNI. So this is a real GDP, hence this option is eliminated. And infant mortality is not a part of HDI, this is eliminated. And morbidity is also not part of the index. And if you look at that option, none of the options match this answer. Hence this option, hence this question was scraped in the first place. This is with regard to the HDI. So what are the learnings from this particular question? Let us discuss it over here. So after going through this question, we come to a conclusion that the kind of question that might be asked from any particular index is what are the indicators comprising that index. First of all, they will ask the indicators. If not indicator, what is the rank of India? If not rank, then what is the score of India within this particular HDI index? This question has been asked, but in the future upcoming examination, these are the areas where one can still test with regard to human development index. This is an important index and one has to prepare thoroughly, rank, score, and within that there are three indicators, that is health, education and standard of living. Out of 189 country, a total rank might be given, such as India stands at 131 in the year 2020 out of 189 country when it comes to HDI index. This is one particular question. And still that question might be twisted to make it difficult. What is the ranking of India in the health parameter? That is in the health parameter. Out of the total countries that have participated in this index. And if not health, they can also ask you about the ranking of India in the education parameter. And similarly, standard of living. So you can prepare this way. This is the idea that this question will give us an idea that how do we prepare for the upcoming examination. And since this question might not be repeated, we are also discussing what are the other areas where one might test you. That is, the examiner might test your knowledge in the examination. And similarly, for other reports, that is, IMF releases the Global Stability Report, and many other organizations such as World Bank releases many reports, and Global Gender Development Index is another report that is released by United Nations Development Program. So any report that you are studying with regard to the development aspect, this is a very important chapter, that is the development. So anything that is measuring the development and any report that is concerned with the development has to be studied thoroughly, and the parameters. This question will give us an idea that these are the things that one should look at. What are the indicators comprising that index, rank, score? So friends, that was with regard to the first question. Now let's move on to the second question. So the question is from the topic unemployment, poverty and inequality. So the topics, the reason behind highlighting this topic is these topics have to be studied. These form the pivotal aspect of our preparation, and these are the areas where they will be testing you again and again. That is, the question might not be repeated, but the topic of unemployment, poverty and inequality will definitely appear in the upcoming examination. So one has to study thoroughly when it comes to these topics. So let us now look at the question that was asked with regard to this topic. Who conducts the periodical sample survey for estimating the poverty line in India? This is a keyword here, poverty line. See, poverty can be measured through two ways. One is absolute poverty. Absolute poverty. The other one is the relative poverty. The absolute poverty line as given by the World Bank can be stated that anyone who earns less than $1.90 per day is considered as a poor. But this is a very crude indicator of poverty. So apart from that, the relative poverty within the country, there are different measures when it comes to measuring poverty, and various committees have been formed with regard to the poverty line. First of all, the major important committees are Tendulkar Committee, which was formed in the year 2005, and apart from that, Rangarajan Committee. Rangarajan Committee was constituted in the year 2011. So these are the two important committees that were formed with regard to the estimation of poverty in India. And the poverty estimation can be done on the basis of either the earnings of an individual or the calorie consumption, that is how many calories are you consuming on a daily basis. The poor people consume less calories and the rich people tend to consume more calories. So that is with regard to the poverty. So this chapter is very important and it describes the development that India has made in the past few years or the since independence and how has the country progressed post its independence. So there is an annual or periodical sample survey for estimating the poverty line. So the if you are not sure about how to approach this question in the examination, you can think of this way. See, it is usually the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. It is the ministry which will release major indicators or the data with regard to any indicator such as the poverty, unemployment. So this is the ministry. But Ministry of Social Justice is just given to confuse you, so you can eliminate it. It's the purpose of this ministry is to compile all the data and give up a better measure or estimates. So you can eliminate this, and you are confused between these three options. So this is particularly factual in nature, so you had to know this. The answer in this particular case was NSSO. That is National Sample Survey Organization. And apart from that, Niti Aayog is an important extra constitutional, or it is not part of the constitution. So it is a body that is formed by the Prime Minister in the year 2015. So whenever you are solving any question, apart from the given option, you can also research about the remaining options, so that is a way through which your knowledge will be enhanced. And you can study about Niti Aayog, which was constituted in the year 2015, replacing the Planning Commission, and CSO. So now let us look at this particular question, or that is the explanation. NSSO conducts the periodical sample survey for poverty estimation. How does it do it? It collects the data at the household level, enterprise level, village facilities, and the land and livestock holdings. Apart from that, this question was asked in the year 2016. But in today's time, Central Statistical Organization, which used to release all the inflation data, inflation reports such as CPI, and NSSO, which used to compile the annual survey of industries and the index of industrial production. So now these both are merged and formed National Statistical Office. This has taken place in the last few months. So this is a major development that with regard to this particular news. So these are the kind of questions that might be asked. So this is all with regard to the NSSO. Now let's move on to the next question. So the question is, which of the following states of India has the highest poverty ratio? See, again the question is from this particular topic: unemployment, poverty and inequality. So poverty is a very important topic. So when it comes to this question, see, you already know that the developed states such as Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, they tend to have less poverty. They are less poor, and the underdeveloped are more poor in nature. So the underdeveloped states in India are Bimaru, that is Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, UP. See, if the options were given such as Maharashtra, Karnataka, Bihar and some other South Indian states such as Kerala, then you could easily mark the option. But here all the options are very close in nature, that is all the states are underdeveloped: Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha and UP. So this becomes this is quite a difficult question. You have to know the exact data. And in this particular question, the answer was Odisha. That was back in 2016. So this question gives us an idea that whenever we are approaching or whenever we are attending the next examination, we have to just look at the poverty ratios that exist within India. So that will give us an idea, or that if the question appears, we will be able to better answer the question. So that's all with regard to this question. Again, the question is from this particular topic, that is unemployment, poverty and inequality. And this was asked in the year 2016. So what is the question? What was the unemployment rate during the year 2015-16 based on usual principal status in India? So what exactly is this usual principal status in India? See, the unemployment rate unemployment rate is measured through various ways, and one of the ways is activity status. That is activity status. Within this activity status, there are 4 indicators. So what is this activity status? How much activity have you been doing in the last 365, taking the 365 days as a base, that is in the last 1 year. If you are engaged in the formal sector, if you are working for more than for a longer period of time, suppose you are working for more than 30 days or working for more than 6 months, based on that you will be this unemployment is measured. There are different measures such as the principal status, subsidiary status, current weekly status, and current daily status. So now let us look at them one by one. So what exactly is the principal status? So if you are working in the last 1 year for a longer period of time, that might be anything greater than 30 days, then that is a usual principal status. So on the basis, so if you are not even employed, and let us now look at the subsidiary status. If you are working for more than, suppose you are an agricultural worker, or consider you are a formal sector. You are part of formal sector. So in this case you will be working throughout the year, so that is not the problem. In the informal sector, suppose you are a farmer, that too landless farmer. During the sowing season and the harvesting season you tend to have the job, but apart from that rest of the time you are unemployed or you are sitting idle. So now apart from that, if you are working in MG Narega also, so farming is your principal status, farming is your principal activity, and apart from that you are during idle time you are also working in MG Narega, and this work is for greater than 30 days, then that is a subsidiary status. So your principal work here is that of farming, and during the idle time you are also working as a wage laborer in MG Narega. So this becomes your subsidiary status. And as per this, if you are working for more than 30 days in the last 365 days, then you are considered as employed. And this is on the weekly basis and this is on the daily basis. So the idea behind this question is unemployment rate is a very important measure for the macroeconomic stability of India. So you have to have a different idea. One second. So you have to have an idea with regard to the unemployment status in India. So the in this particular question the answer was option C, that is 5%. So the important learning that we take from this particular question is, apart from this unemployment rate that we have discussed, that is the usual principal status, subsidiary status, current weekly status, these are the other questions that you might be tested in the upcoming examination. And apart from that, there is an important indicator of unemployment which is part of periodic labor force survey released by NSO. So the data might also be asked directly from this. So the idea is to go through the important reports that have been released by the official government, which would be helpful for our future upcoming examination. So this was with regard to the fourth question. Now let us move on to the other important topic, which is government budgeting. And again this is asked from the year 2016. So let us look at the question. Government budgeting. Before proceeding ahead, for your examination, government budget and survey, economic survey, these are the very important documents. One has to be thorough, which can be used, the questions can be asked directly in the prelims examination as well as the mains examination. And if you look at the previous year question that have been asked in the year HPS prelims from 2016 to 2020, roughly 8 to 10 questions are from economy. And within that, if you are able to study, within that, there are at least 2 questions, the government budget and economic survey. This is not a particular or rigid figure. This might be changing year on year, but this forms a very important fodder for your exam preparation. So now, having understood that, let's look at the question. For the budget proposals of 2017-18, which of the following is not correct? So before proceeding ahead, you have to look at the keywords not correct, and let us look at the option. Target for agricultural credit has been fixed to the tune of rupees 10 lakh crore. And new mini labs in Krishi Vigyan Kendra will be established. Total allocation for rural agriculture and allied sector is rupees 80,000 crore. And achieving 100% village electrification. Focus on the keyword here, village electrification by 1st May 2018. So the government, if you look at the original reports of the government, village will be considered as electrified if even 30% of the households are able to get the supply of electricity. That was the definition, that is the definition of village electrification. In order to answer this question, you had to go through this budget 2017-18 thoroughly, because you cannot apply or answer this question by the elimination method. And in this particular question, the answer was option C. So the major learning that we take from this particular question is to study the budget and the economic survey thoroughly, or the major important topics out of that topic. Now let us move on to the next question. Again, the very important question from the budget. The question here is asked is, in the budget for 2017-18, the funds allocated for MG Narega is. See friends, MG Narega is a very important program. It focuses on wage employment. Wage employment. Because the India is majorly rural in nature, that is the 69% of India's population resides in rural places as per 2011 census. And if you look at the rural places, the major important activity that is carried out in rural places is farming or the agriculture. Farming or the agriculture. And most of the people who are landless, they are involved in the farming activity only during the sowing and the harvesting part, and rest of the time they are unemployed. So the government, in order to tackle this huge unemployment problem that was facing India, rolled out a MG Narega program wherein it would be building the assets in the rural places with the help of the rural people. So it had assured that you will be provided 100 days of fixed employment in an year on your demand. So this was a very important and a landmark event when it comes to addressing unemployment in India. So this is a very important program that was launched in the year 2006, and since then the allocation towards it has been increasing persistently. And in this particular question they have asked what was the budget allocation in this particular year, that is 2017-18, and the options given were 45,000 crore, 48,000 crore, 35,000 crore and 55,000 crore. The answer in that particular question was 48,000 crore. If you look at this graph, from its inception, that is 2006, 11,000 crore was allotted, and you can see this graph over here. It has been rising consistently, and in the year 2019-20, 60,000 crore has been allocated to it. So MG Narega is a very important scheme when it comes to our preparation. So similarly, the major learning that we take from this particular question is all the important and the landmark schemes that have been rolled by the government are a vital part of our preparation. We have to be thorough with its all its aspect, such as what are the features of MG Narega and which it falls under which ministry. All such questions can be asked in the upcoming examination as well. So now let us look at the next question, friends. So those were the questions that were asked from the year 2016. Now we are moving on to 2017 question. And in this topic, again the economic survey. As highlighted already, budget and economic survey. If in the last 2016 year there was no question, or the question from survey were not asked, and suddenly the question comes up in 2017. So this is a very important document when it comes to the preparation for public service examinations. So in this particular question, before proceeding ahead, I would like to tell you the scheme of things. Suppose we are now entering the year of 2022. So on the 1st Feb, the Union Finance Minister releases the budget for the upcoming financial year. So what is a financial year or fiscal year? That is from 1st April to 31st March. So in this particular, that is the 1st April 2022 to 2023. So the fiscal year 2022 to 23 would be this particular year. So on 1st Feb 2022, the Union Finance Minister will release the budget. That is, the government will come out with an annual financial plan saying that for this particular time period, that is from 1st April 2022 to 31st March 2033, how is the government allocating its expenditure. And similarly, in the year 2022 itself, the economic survey is released. Economic survey. It will make an analysis on the past financial year, that is 1st April 2020 to 31st March. So this is 2021 to 31st March 2022. So the economic survey will give an analysis of the events, how has the economy performed in the last financial year, and you might be getting a question that still the financial year has not been completed, because it is in the month of Feb that the month of Feb or Jan the economic survey of the last year is released. Yeah, you are right. Still some 1 month is left, but still the economic survey released is on the basis of last 10 months performance. So now in this survey, this is the past year's projection, how has the economy performed, and it will also give a projection on the basis of the past year performance, what might be the growth that might occur in the upcoming financial year. So this is a scheme of things that you have to understand. Now if you look at this 2018-19, just replace this with 2018-19, 18-19. So in the month of Feb 2018, the budget is released, and similarly in this same month, survey is released. Economic survey is released for the year 2017-18. So this survey will give us a projection that how much growth rate will occur in the upcoming year. So this is that particular question, but you might be wondering that this is in year 2017. I would like to tell you friends here that the exam HPAS is working with a lag of 1 year. So this examination was conducted in the year 2018. Now it makes sense that this question was particularly asked. And the kind of learnings that we take from this particular question is, whenever we are preparing for the upcoming examination, we have to focus on the growth rate. That is, what is India's estimated GDP growth rate for the upcoming year. And in this particular question, the answer was C. That was in the year 2017. Question HPS prelims that was conducted in 2017 had asked this question. So now moving on to the next question, that is development and poverty. So what, again, this is a very important topic. Development and poverty. As we discussed that GDP is a crude way of measuring the growth of a country or the prosperity of a country. We have to have better measures such as the HDI, Human Development Index, and apart from that, United Nations Development Program has also come up with multi-dimensional poverty index. So all these reports are very important. So again, from the chapter of development. Now let us look at this question. Who described the critical and creative role of politics? This is a keyword over here. Politics in India as the Indian model of development. Indian model of development. So before proceeding ahead, in the examination hall, if you do not know this answer, let us think how can we or how would we approach this question. See, Amartya Sen, he is a Nobel laureate and he was awarded Nobel Prize in Economics for his contribution to welfare economics. Contribution to welfare economics. So you have to have an idea about the major personalities. That is, Amartya Sen was awarded Nobel Prize in the year 1998 and the subject was welfare economics. And Jagdish Bhagwati is another important economist. If you are studying the development chapter, that is the growth and development chapter, the debate of Amartya Sen versus Jagdish Bhagwati is an important debate to form an opinion on the developmental aspect of a country. So he is also an economist and focused on the various aspects, welfare economist, welfare policies. And James Manner is an option given to confuse you. They see in these, if you knew about these two personalities, they have purely talked about the welfare economics. They nowhere talked about the role of politics, and this option is just given to confuse you. So you could eliminate all these three options and come to the conclusion that this is the answer, and the correct answer was Rajneesh Kothari only in this. So this is the approach you can follow if you do not know any of the question. On the basis of your past knowledge, you can just think in the examination hall and come to the conclusion. Now let us look at the Rajneesh Kothari a bit. This is the image of Rajneesh Kothari. So he is an important Indian political scientist, political theorist, academic and writer. He is one of his greatest political thinker. Let us look at his important publications of books. That is Politics in India 1970, Caste in Indian Politics, and the Rethinking Democracy. So they might also test you on the kind of books that might be released. That is not mentioned. So the scope of examination is very wide. Scope of examination is very wide. You can just focus on the kind of on the basis of the previous year analysis. You can study these personalities and their contribution towards the Indian economy. So this is the another question that is asked from the development and poverty. You can come to the conclusion now that poverty is these topics are very important and they have been asking consistently from these topics. Now let us look at the next question. So what exactly this question is asking? Again from the poverty chapter. These past year papers give you an opinion or give you an importance of the topics that are that needs to be covered during your preparation. So poverty topic is a very crucial chapter when it comes to your preparation. So now let us look at this question. Find the correct poverty estimates for the given states in the year 2011-12 as per the Planning Commission. And the option A is this, option B is this, option C is this, and option D. So option A talks that Arunachal Pradesh has a poverty of 34.7% in the year 2011-12 as per the Planning Commission. And the Bihar has a poverty of 39.9%, Chhattisgarh has a 36.9%, and Manipur has 33.7%. This is option A. And option B, option C, option D. See again this the examiner is trying to test you on a core factual data. Core factual data. You might be not knowing the particular or exact data, but as we have already discussed in the past, one of the past question that developed states tend to have less poverty, or less poor people, and the underdeveloped have more poor people in contrast to the developed states. And within India, the developing or the states which are lagging behind by the developed states are BIMARU, that is Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, UP, Chhattisgarh. These are the few of the states which are still lagging behind. They have quite high poverty rates. So if in this option you can come to the conclusion that either Bihar or Chhattisgarh has to have a highest poverty rates. So if you come to the conclusion that Bihar has the highest poverty rate among these four options, then this is option A is one of that such option. You eliminate this option, and option C is another probable option. And if you look at this, here Chhattisgarh has a highest poverty. So now one option is eliminated. You are left with three options. Now you have to decide in the examination hall whether out of your gut feeling you have to decide. If you decide that Chhattisgarh has the highest poverty, then you can mark this question and come to the conclusion, but you are always confused. So this is a kind of difficult question where you have to know the exact figures to answer this question, because the options are quite close. But now coming to the answer of this question, the answer was option D, wherein it says that Chhattisgarh has the highest poverty rate, then the Manipur, then the Arunachal Pradesh, then the Bihar. So this is how you can think in the examination hall. This was a quite difficult question because the options are very narrowly spaced. Now let us look at the next question. Which one of the following states has the highest percentage of irrigated area? And the options are Arunachal Pradesh, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, and Sikkim. So again, if you do not know this answer, you can still think along these lines. See, the Green Revolution that took place in India was in the region of Punjab, Haryana, and the Western UP. So these are the three areas where the Green Revolution was quite successful, and the Green Revolution was majorly revolving around the increased production of rice and wheat. Rice and wheat. So rice is a water guzzling crop. It consumes a lot of water. And so all these three states, in order to produce rice, have to have a greater amount of water, either from the canals, rivers, or the existing infrastructure, that is canal, or the groundwater. If you had this particular knowledge while answering this question, you can directly come to the conclusion that the northeastern states which see a good rainfall, they are rain-fed states. So you could eliminate this option, and they are asking has the highest percentage of irrigated area. And so even Jammu Kashmir is not an option, because these are three areas or three states where large amount of rice and wheat cultivation takes place. Hence the answer was Haryana. So friends, I am telling you the approach, even if you do not know the exact answer, the lines along which you can think and come to the answer, because there is no possibility, or there is no certainty, because the examination, the syllabus is quite so vast, you cannot cover each and everything. But based on your knowledge, you can still eliminate the option. You always have to focus on the approach of elimination while answering this question. So if you use this approach and apply some logic and arrive at the answer, you might be right, because you have already studied a lot. You can use that knowledge and come to the conclusion. And in this particular question, answer was Haryana itself. So now let us look at the next question. That is, which one of the following is the largest industry in India? And the options given are cement, iron and steel, petroleum, and the textile. See, suppose again in the examination setting, you do not know the exact answer. So, but based on your knowledge that you have accumulated while preparing for this exam, out of the various subjects such as history, geography, could be used to answer this question. So I will show you how you could answer this question. See, industrial revolution that took place in Britain in the year late 1750s and later spread to different parts of the world. India, which was a colony of Britain, had the majorly textile industry functioning, textile handicraft industry functioning back since then. So if you had studied history, you would already read that the textile industry gave a very stiff competition. Though these products were hand woven, it gave a stiff competition to the industrial mechanized or the industrial products or the textile products that were made out of the machine. These were sold at a very low price, but still the Indian textile industry gave a stiff competition to the Britain industrial products. So implying the conclusion that I am trying to derive from our discussion is that textile industry has been the backbone of Indian economy since a long time. So if you knew this question, if you knew this part of the logic, or if you knew this information, you could come to the conclusion that now again coming to the present times, textile industry comprises of three major sectors. That is, it is again subclassified. That is complete mechanized industry, where all the textile products are completely produced on machines, and on the other end is the hand weaving. And in between lies the decentralized power loom sector. So if you combine all these three sectors, then textile industry is the largest industry in India. So you could also come to the conclusion. Now you knew that textile industry was existing since India for a long time, and it was prospering well as well. Petroleum is something that has come up recently post independence. You could think along these lines. I am just giving you a hint. This is not the hard and fast rule. And apart from that, iron and the major industries that were existing in India just after independence were iron and steel, textile, sugar industry, jute industry. So these were the major industries, but the most dominant was textile and neither the cement. Hence, you could come to the conclusion that answer was textile, and that is the right answer. So friends, this is how you come to the conclusion, and apart from that, you can just focus on, if you are starting recently or quite late with regard to the preparation, You can also study as a part of geography which are the major industries or the large industries that exist in India. So, and the major learning that we derive from this particular question is, these are the kind of questions that might be asked in the upcoming examination as well. So, industrial development is another important topic. So, having discussed these 11 questions, it gives us an idea that how do we prepare for our upcoming examination, and it also gave us an idea that how can we come to the answer even if we do not know by using our existing knowledge. So friends, that's all we have in this session. If you have any for more such interesting videos, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and get an instant notification of the new videos. So friends, that's all in this session. Thank you.